We saw you. We didn't see you once in The King and I. I saw you twice, and my wife went back and saw you 3 times when you did The King and I here.
That's very flattering, Jack. It's a lovely role, you know. So
But
that
I must say that I saw the movie, and I don't remember if I ever saw it again on stage. But I felt that you did such a magnificent job in The King and I. We were just thrilled. And as I say, I never go back to a thing twice. My wife usually can't drag me once. But you were so marvelous in The King and I that I went back, and she went back one more time.
Thank you, Jack. Well, it's a marvelous role, you know, and as it is true with all marvelous roles, let's say any number of actors can portray the same role and have their own interpretation, and all the interpretations be valid. You see, because it's the role is very pregnant. It's really very full, so it's a great joy to perform it. Actually, you know, those roles are rather easy to perform. An audience usually is very moved by the things that are easiest for the actor to do. It's like, well, for instance, the things that seem very simple to the audience are the most difficult to do. And vice versa, the most complicated things. For instance, the scene where the actor, let's say, is a dope addict and he needs a fix very badly, but he wants to lick the habit. So he locks himself in a room, and all I have to do is put a camera on the corner of the room, and I tell you, Jack, all right, this is what you're going to do. You are shaking. You want to fix very badly, so just wreck all the furniture in this room. And when you wrecked everything, then you fall on the floor and you begin to cry and you hold your stomach and you shake and everything. Well, now, you can readily see that that's rather easy to do, isn't it? I mean, and the audience is going to say, what a marvelous performance. The thing that it is difficult in life to do and to bring a truth to it are the things that are very simple, you see. So that
example now again, what would you mean by something very simple?
Well, let's suppose that I am the actor who has to introduce you in a scene, and I have to explain about you and say, well, you see, Jack is a boy who's very brave. He's suffering from a terrible injury in his spine because many years ago he fell off a horse and it left him with a limp, and he's suffering, and he just lost his beautiful pet, little dog that he loved very much, and then, here he comes. Now, see, I'm setting the stage for you. That's very difficult to do anything with that scene and to make it come to life. But when you come through that door after that introduction, all you have to say is hi, and they say, wasn't he marvelous? He was suffering.
Anybody see my dog?
That's right. Well, it's true, isn't it? You know, but in everything in life, Jack, I had the pleasure once of talking to people who in their own field were the best, or very close to the best in their time. I remember talking to Dr. Sammy Lee, who had just won the Olympic Games. And this was in 1951, and he was attending the Pan American Games. And my wife and I were making a tour of Latin America, and I met him with Pat McCormick, another great diver. And Sammy Lee was the great diver
from UCLA.
From the high platform. Yes, Dr. Sammy Lee. And I asked him, Doctor, what is the most difficult dive from the high platform? He says, the swan. I said, wait a minute, isn't it the 2.5 with the twist? He said, no, you see, any time, for instance, let's say you're going to do the 1.5, and let's suppose that you leave the platform and you have too much momentum. Well, then you go into your tuck, and because you have too much momentum, you open a little earlier. So you have some control on the air. And let's say you don't have enough momentum when you leave the platform. Well, you hold your tuck a little longer, and then you open up. You have some control. But in this one, you take your jump off the platform and you leave, and that's it, brother. You cannot correct one muscle or one. So it's got to be perfect execution, and yet it seems the simplest. The most beautiful shape in the world is the egg, isn't it? I mean, the egg is functional, it's simple, it's beautiful.
I like girls.
I do too. Well, which came first, the egg or the girl?
You know, you talk about each actor giving his own interpretation to a role. On the stage, have you ever found that on Monday, or say on Tuesday, that your interpretation was different than it was on Monday? Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Well, with the King and I, again, I repeat, it's a marvelous role, so that every night was a challenge for me and a joy to do. However, I did a play on Broadway with Lena Horne called Jamaica, which lasted 2 years. And the play really didn't have enough substance. The role didn't offer a challenge for me. It was simply hard work. And I must say that in order to keep my interest up after the first 3 or 4 months, let alone a year and a half later, I did have to interject without destroying the writer's intention. I did have to interject in the character different little facets to keep my interest alive, so that I hope that my performance didn't defeat, as I say, the purpose of the writer, but I do hope that I gave different little colors here and there to keep it alive, to keep it new, to keep it fresh. Yes. When you say Tuesday, Monday is difficult somehow because you've rested Sunday. And Monday becomes a very difficult night somehow. At least I found it so.
Mondays are rotten for everybody. Just forget Mondays.
Yes.
What about love scenes, particularly if the girl is very attractive? Do you ever find you forget your lines, or you get distracted, or you...
Well, I hate to seem, how would I say, I don't know.
If you say you kiss one, you kiss them all, I'm leaving.
No, I'm not saying that, Jack, but I'm saying that I like to think of myself as a professional actor. And I like to say that, I like to think, at least I strive for that when I am doing a scene, I do try to concentrate on the character portraying that scene. And so if this character is supposed to find this girl very attractive, and indeed I do find her very attractive, but very often, let's say you're doing a character who's fed up with this particular girl, and she's very attractive. Well, then you really have to feel that you're fed up. You have to concentrate. You have to live the part. So I really try to divorce my personal feelings when I am acting. Otherwise, I would be defeating my purpose, wouldn't I? I would not be true to the character. So working in the scene is not the problem. The problem for the actor, and that's why marriage is quite a challenge for an actor, is between scenes when you, let's say, this very beautiful girl is also very appealing and very lovely and very sweet girl. And you're actually spending much more time with this girl than you are with your wife. And you go to the studio at 6:30 in the morning and you work until 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night. And you come home, have a quick dinner, study your lines, and get to bed. And you just say hi to your wife, and that's it. So that you can become involved. I don't mean romantically, but just in the relationship with another human being. You can become very involved with a leading lady who is sweet and appealing.
And of course, she has the same problems too.
And
she's
has
not
the same
seeing her husband, and
it's not an easy. The life of the actor from the distance looks very glamorous and so forth, but it's fraught with frustrations and very serious and grave problems. So that the actor who can successfully keep his marriage alive and lead a good life and so forth, I think is to be admired. I really do. It offers a great challenge.
Now, I'm not sure that memory serves me, but there's a line or a quote that I think I would credit to you, and I'm not sure you said it now that I think about it. It had to do with defining a great lover. Was that you?
Yes.
It was. It was you. I'm glad my memory is with me. Go ahead.
Well, I was asked by Helen Gurley Brown, who challenged me in one show. I think it was in the Joey Bishop show. And she was talking about the Latin lover, what's a Latin lover, and all Latin lovers are lousy lovers and all this kind of talk and so forth. And of course, they get this image from films and from Americans' interpretation of what a Latin is, which I think is very erroneous and on a high caricature of what a Latin really is, or let's say a Mexican or a Spaniard really is. So I told her that the greatest Latin lover that I ever knew was my father, who was a virgin when he married my mother, and obviously she was, in Spain. And he died at the age of 83, after 53 years of married life, having been faithful to my wife, to his wife, to my mother, all those 53 years, never cheating on her, and making her happy. That to me is a great lover. The man who goes from woman to woman, to me, a dog can do that. That's not a lover. He's the sort of called Casanova or Don Juan. To me, it's a big failure as a lover, because conquest is very interesting and very appealing, but it takes no effort or no talent. But to make one woman happy for 53 years, that's a hell of a lover.
That's lovely. That's what I was thinking of, too. I have Ricardo Montalban here, by the way, and we haven't even talked about the movie. One other thing I wanted to ask. You casually threw a little thing, and we were talking before, and you said if you were to introduce me when I came on stage, you would say, this fella has injured his back, and one thing. That was true. I mean, you were telling a true story, because that happened to you in a picture some years ago, didn't it?
Picture I did with Clark Gable called Across the Wide Missouri, and I was playing an Indian and I had to ride this bareback, a horse with just a piece of rope tied around his lower lip, like Indian style. and he bucked and he caught me off guard, and I landed on a rock, and I was paralyzed for 2 weeks. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And everything came back except my left leg left me with. I have been fighting a limp all these years,
Mm-hmm.
and lack of sensitivity in my right leg. But that in itself, it's been a challenge, and I in my life, I had to try to work it out, and because of that, I think I have become a better physical specimen, if that's the word. No, I have improved in my physical capabilities because of the challenge of an injury like that. I still have the paralysis, but I play handball and tennis, and I dance, and I ride horses, and I do everything. And I think that because of it, I am in better condition than I would have been otherwise. So I think
it's hardly a pitfall, though, that we think of for an actor. I mean, you think of the problems that actors have, but who would ever think that you're going to have to be riding a horse one day and something could happen? It's just one of the pitfalls of the trade or of the craft.
Absolutely. Oh, many accidents are happening in pictures to actors, serious accidents.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not an easy life in any way you look at it. You know, in any way you look at it.
What about the difference between doing a play where you do a thing from beginning to end as opposed to a movie where it's chopped up and you're doing one scene one day and one scene the next day completely out of context? Does it take more concentration to do the movie?
Well, I'm going to make a statement, Jack, that I think sounds like contradiction, but really it isn't. It is easier to get by on a motion picture simply because there is the chance of making another take, you see. So for a mediocre actor or a bad actor, it is easier to get by in a motion picture than it would be in the theater. However, for an actor who has some craft and talent, it is infinitely easier to be a theater actor than a motion picture actor, because as you can readily see, in the theater, number one, you have a rehearsal period of 2, 3, 4 weeks, you see, in which you are growing this character. You have chance to experiment with it. Then you go for 2 weeks to Philadelphia, 2 weeks to Boston, you see, and New Haven, another 2 weeks, maybe 2, 6, or 8 weeks on the road. And then you open on Broadway. Well, by that time, you should be very well prepared, very secure, and you should have been able to bring into play all your imagination and whatever craft you have. But in a motion picture, you know, you're given the script, and you're very lucky if you get the script like 15 or 20 days ahead of time. And then you have to just rely on your instincts very often and on the taste of your director. Television is even worse. I'm given a script, for instance, on a Monday morning, and my agent says, read it fast, please, because they need an answer right away. And I read it fast, and an hour and a half later I call and say, yes, I'll do it. Okay, will you go to Western costumes this afternoon? And I am fitted in Western costumes as a man from outer space, let's say, for the Star Trek. And the next morning I'm doing a man from outer space, and I'm in front of the cameras facing the dear public, you see, and doing the best I know how. However, films do give you a little more time, naturally, than television. In Sweet Charity, for instance, I had one of the great pleasures of my life, because whenever I finish a day's work and I'm driving home, I always do the whole day's work while I'm driving back home. You know, I'm doing all the scenes that I did the whole day. As I'm driving home, I say, why didn't I do that? Dear God, why didn't this thought occur to me? It would have been so much better, you know. But in Sweet Charity, working with Bob Fosse, who is an extremely talented, imaginative, and thank God, a man of great taste. Whenever he said print it, and he would say to me, that was good, I never questioned it. And all the time I was doing Sweet Charity, I never did the scenes over again when I was, you know, driving home. I felt so safe and so secure that if he said it was good, it was good. It's marvelous to have a good director behind you.
Of course, you worked with some interesting people in Sweet Charity, too. Sammy Davis Jr. is in Sweet Charity. Stubby Kaye.
Yes. John McMartin, who was in the original cast of Broadway of Sweet Charity.
Shirley MacLaine.
And, of course, Shirley MacLaine, who is a consummate actress. And what a joy to do scenes with Shirley.
I have seen her in different movies where, for the first 5 or 10 minutes, I didn't recognize her. She was so believable. She differs. She physically, from part to part, is there's such an amazing transformation.
And extremely concentrated actress.
I would think so.
And it makes it all the easier for you to work with her. You know, there was a theory many years ago, and I guess it still exists with some actors, that it follows it stands to reason, they seem to think, that if you work with a mediocre actor, you are going to look much better because you are such a good actor, you see, by comparison. Well, nothing is further from the truth, because the mediocre actor will bring you down practically to his level.
Do you know it's true in handball or golf or anything
Or
else?
tennis or anything, isn't it? Or in an interview. You see, if you have a subject who can express himself, it's easier for you even to interview
It's no work at
somebody
all.
who can't speak, And so working with Shirley, it was it's so easy, because the minute we started working, the camera disappeared, everything disappeared. It was just she and I communicating and doing these things. It was a great joy for me, really.
How long does a movie like Sweet Charity take to film?
About 16 weeks,
That
16,
long?
17 weeks, yes.
Was it all done in Hollywood?
My contribution was all in Hollywood, and then afterwards, then they went to New York. There are some scenes that take place in Central Park, and then there is a marvelous number that Shirley does, a musical number, right, all around New York, and they end up in, I think it's in Wall Street, that section there. They shot that on a Sunday, I believe, when everything was, empty, and they...
Things have been bad in Wall Street Monday through Friday the past few months. You don't have to get on there on a Sunday to look at dead bodies. We're running out of time, but we must discuss the premiere for a minute in The Good Sisters.
Oh, yes.
The
Sisters of the Presentation are in sore need of a new mother's home where they are living now. It's pathetic. I visited, and dear God, the conditions of
There are 5 or 6 to a room.
Oh,
it's just
yes.
tragic.
And I think the building has been condemned, if I'm not mistaken. It's really terrible the way they're poor sisters. And so they desperately need a fund for this mother's home now, this new one. I think they already had the ground, and the groundbreaking ceremonies took place the other day, and so the receipts of this the charity of the premiere of Sweet Charity, the receipts will go to the Sisters of the Presentation. So we are hoping that a lot of people will come to see it and help.
The date is the 28th.
Cause.
Do you have ticket information anywhere you call for tickets? At the box office on the 28th, the premiere of Sweet Charity. At the St. Francis Theater.
St. Francis Theater, yes.
Tickets are on sale right now.
So they will be contributing to something very marvelous, and at the same time, they will be receiving in return, I think, a marvelous evening, because I'm very, very proud to be a part of Sweet Charity.
It's a tax-deductible. I'm glad you added that, a tax-deductible contribution. Today's the 18th, so the premiere is 10 days from today. That would be a week from Friday. Well, I can't tell you how delightful it's been. The half hour just went by that quick. I must ask you one other question. When I knew you were coming in today, I wanted to ask you this because it's something that I've wondered about, and I know that if anyone can answer it, you can. I read a statement attributed to Jose Ferrer 6 months ago, and since then I've heard him doing orange juice commercials on television. He has a magnificent voice, and I recognize his voice. He said, and I feel that he's a fine actor, an actor of stature.
Indeed.
He said that it was impossible to find work, that he was out of work, that he could not find work, that I would assume all the things that go with it, that he was in trouble or whatever, And as I say, I've heard him doing things that I just would not normally expect him to do. And I wonder, is this true in the industry? Are actors of his stature having difficulty finding work? Could that be?
Yes, Jack, and a lot of it is due to the fact that you'd be surprised how many of our films are done abroad, runaway productions. And in a runaway production, what happens is that if you go, for instance, to England, and they have the ED plan there, which you get tremendous tax breaks and so forth. As a producer, you would go because it would be less expensive to do it there than in Hollywood. So you go there. But what happens is that they only let you bring 1 or 2 American stars. So they will bring somebody like Anthony Quinn or Charlton Heston or something, and then the rest has to be all English cast. So there are the marvelous roles that Jose Ferrer could be playing, but he can't because England won't allow it, or Italy, or Spain, or whatever. This runaway production is a very serious problem. There is enough production in Hollywood. I mean, but it's all away from Hollywood.
I see.
So that has created a monster. And I am on the board of the Screen Actors Guild, and we're trying to, in every way we can, to try to bring production back to these United States of America, so that we can all benefit from a very big industry. that is denying us the right to work.
And is the reason simply the tax advantage? Is that the basic advantage to doing
Yes,
the
it
work?
is. So we had to devise something in this country, perhaps something that works like the ED plan in England,
A
where
similar
the
tax
the
advantage?
theater owner contributes a certain amount of money from each ticket, a very small amount. But this becomes a huge fund out of which the producers can take money to produce pictures, you see, with a very little rate of interest, or perhaps no interest at all, just for the good of the. But the theater owners so far don't want to contribute to that. I think they're very, their vision is very, very short, and they can't see the advantages that they could benefit from by doing this. So that's, but we'll see. We'll find a solution to it, because Jose Ferrer should be working.
Yes,
Indeed.
he should.
Yes,
He
indeed.
should. Again, thanks to Ricardo Montalban for coming in. The premiere is in 10 days on the 28th at the St. Francis Theater. We're going to the news, Rich, because we're running late. The 28th, and tickets are on sale. They are there, and the proceeds go to benefit the Sisters
Of presentation.
of Presentation. Thank you again for coming in.
Thank you for having me, Jack.